Friendship is one of the most powerful forces in our lives. It offers comfort, laughter, support, and a sense of belonging. A good friend can feel like a warm light on a cold day, someone who sees us for who we are and chooses us anyway. But not all friendships are what they seem. Some come wrapped in the right words but hide the wrong intentions. Others start well but shift over time into dynamics that drain rather than nourish. We often hear about red flags in romantic relationships, but the truth is, friendships can be just as complicated, just as beautiful, and if we're not careful, just as toxic. Some of the deepest wounds don't come from enemies. They come from people we once called friends. This video explores the different types of friends we should watch out for, not to become paranoid or closed off, but to protect our peace, guard our energy, and recognize the difference between real connection and disguised harm. 1. The envious friend. At first, you might genuinely believe they admire you. They tell you they're proud of your growth, that you inspire them to aim higher. Their compliments sound heartfelt. On the surface, there's warmth in their words, but beneath it all, something feels just a little off. You start noticing how their smile is just a little too wide when you hit a rough patch. How their words of praise are laced with backhanded remarks like, "must be nice," or "you're so lucky," as if to subtly undermine the effort you've put into your success. Envy in friendship doesn't always show up in obvious ways. It rarely looks like direct confrontation or open hostility. More often, it wears the mask of support. It hides in passive-aggressive comments, in subtle eye rolls, in jokes that sting more than they amuse. These friends may imitate your style, your ideas, even your mannerisms, but they'll never give you credit. Instead of cheering you on, they quietly keep score. Every achievement of yours becomes a threat. And without even realizing it, you start to feel like you're always being measured, compared, evaluated. Being around them becomes emotionally exhausting. It's not just what they say or don't say, it's the energy they bring into your space. Their presence makes you second-guess your accomplishments, question your joy, and sometimes even feel guilty for growing. Slowly, their envy chips away your confidence. You start dimming your light, just a little, hoping you'll make things less tense. But in doing so, you're shrinking yourself to accommodate their insecurities. How to spot them? They find it hard to celebrate you unless they're doing equally well or better. They mimic your choices but rarely express genuine support. They're oddly quiet when things go right for you, but become suddenly vocal when things fall apart. 2. The only when they need you friend. They vanish for weeks. Sometimes months, no check-ins, no. "Hey, just thinking of you." No genuine interest in your life. And then suddenly, like clockwork, they reappear. A message pops up, a call comes through, maybe even an invitation to catch up. At first, you feel a spark of hope, thinking maybe they've missed you, maybe they're reaching out to reconnect. But as the conversation unfolds, it becomes clear they need something. Maybe they're going through a rough time and want emotional support. Maybe they need a ride, a loan, a connection, or a favor. Whatever it is, it's not about you, it's about them. The timing is too perfect to be a coincidence, and our warmth feels performative, like a means to an end. These friendships are not built on mutual care or shared memories. They're transactional at their core. You slowly begin to feel less like a friend and more like a resource. Someone to turn to when they need advice, validation, or help, but someone they can easily forget the moment their crisis is over. You give and give and give because that's who you are. You try to be generous, empathetic, and kind. But over time, it starts to hurt. Not because you mind being there for someone, but because you realize they would never do the same for you. Your time, your energy, your emotional bandwidth, they take it all without hesitation, and without ever considering what you might need in return. What makes it especially painful is that the connection often feels real when they're in need. They open up, become vulnerable, act grateful, and for a moment, it feels like friendship again. But as soon as the storm passes, so do they. Back to silence, back to absence, back to only reaching out when you're useful again. You're left feeling used, not seen, needed but not valued. Important only when you can fix something for them. Yes, it's natural for friends to lean on each other in hard times. That's part of what makes friendship beautiful. But when someone only ever shows up when they're in need and disappears when you need them, or when there's nothing to gain, that's not friendship. That's convenient. How to spot them? You're the first person they call when their world is falling apart, but strangely absent from their joys, successes, and everyday life. They always seem to have time for you when they're struggling, but never when you just want to hang out or share good news. Once their problem is solved or their need is met, they fade away again. No follow-up, no effort to stay connected. You often feel emotionally drained after interacting with them, like you've been pulled into someone else's orbit and left empty. 3. The gossip dealer. They always arrive with a story. Not just any story, but the kind that makes your eyes widen and your jaw drop. Did you hear what happened to her and her boyfriend? I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but they lower their voice, glance around the room, and lean in like they're about to reveal a national secret. At first, it felt exciting. Bonding even, you laugh together. You gasp. You shake your heads in disbelief. It almost feels like intimacy, like you're part of a trusted inner circle. But after a while, a little voice inside you starts to whisper, if they say this much about other people, what do they say about me when I'm not here? That's the thing about gossip, it's never just talk. It's a habit that reveals how someone treats trust. And with this kind of friend, trust is never safe. They thrive on drama. They collect details like currency and spend it freely to entertain, connect, or feel powerful. The more outrageous the story, the better. And they don't always stick to the truth. Details are exaggerated, speculations are passed off as facts, and privacy is treated like a joke. These friends often claim to be just venting or being honest, but there's a sharp edge to their words. They talk about people they supposedly love with startling cruelty. One minute they're complimenting someone's new job, and the next they're mocking their success behind their back. They smile at their faces and twist knives behind their backs. The danger here isn't just that they're messy, it's that they pull you into their mess. Slowly, you begin to feel uneasy, even complicit. You catch yourself nodding along or laughing at someone else's misfortune. And deep down, you start to realize that this isn't who you want to be. That being around them often leaves you feeling worse, not better. But there's a deeper cost to these friendships. They chip away at your sense of safety. You learn not to share too much, not to be too open, because you've seen how your words can be twisted, how confidences are passed along for sport. You stop feeling seen and start feeling watched, like everything you say is potential content for their next conversation with someone else. And when they gossip to you about others, they often gossip about you to others. It's only a matter of time. How to spot them? They frequently speak negatively about people they claim are their friends, revealing a pattern of two-faced behavior. They can't keep a secret. Even when asked not to share something, they treat it as optional. They love delivering drama disguised as concern. I just thought you should know what she said about you. They whisper, planting seeds of conflict. Conversations with them leave you feeling uneasy, judgmental, or like you've crossed a line. Friendship should feel safe. With a true friend, you should be able to share your truth and know it would be held with care. But with a gossip-driven friend, nothing is sacred. 4. The secret competitor. You thought you were on the same team. You shared dreams, goals, vulnerabilities. But over time, you notice a subtle rivalry. They're constantly comparing, subtly undermining, or one-upping you. You get good news, they immediately bring up something better that happened to them. You share a creative idea, they find a way to outshine it. This type of friend is driven by comparison, not connection. They're unable to truly celebrate you because your success triggers their insecurity. Instead of being inspired, they feel threatened. Sometimes it's not even conscious. Competition is ingrained in so many aspects of our culture, especially among women, where scarcity mindsets are still being unlearned. But if a friendship starts to feel like a silent competition, it stops feeling like a safe space. How to spot them? They shift the spotlight to themselves during your moments. They minimize your successes or change the subject quickly. They often replicate your ideas, achievements, or style. 5. The emotional leech. They never seem to be okay. There's always something going wrong in their life: a breakup, a bad day at work, a family crisis, an existential meltdown, and somehow you're always their first call. Not because they want to share the burden with someone who genuinely cares, but because, over time, you've become their go-to problem solver, their unpaid therapist, their emotional sponge. At first, it might feel like a meaningful connection. Being there for someone can feel rewarding. You might even feel proud that they trust you enough to open up so deeply. You give advice. You listen without judgment. You check in. You make space. Again and again, but slowly that space becomes all-consuming. The conversations begin to feel one-sided. Every message they send starts with a crisis. Every phone call ends with your emotional energy depleted. If you try to talk about your own struggles, the tone shifts. They either change the subject or compare your pain to theirs. Well, at least you're not going through what I'm dealing with, they say, minimizing your experience while reinforcing their own narrative of constant suffering. Over time, you start to notice a pattern. They don't really want support, they want an audience. They want someone to validate their feelings, but rarely return the favor. They want solutions, but don't take your advice. They want your time, but not your truth. And slowly, your role shifts from friend to caretaker, from equal to emotional employee. What's worse is how subtle it can be. Because they're not mean. They don't yell or manipulate overtly. They just take and take and take until you begin to feel guilty for setting boundaries, for not replying immediately, for needing space to breathe. But friendship isn't meant to drain you. It's meant to ground you. We all go through dark chapters, and true friendship means being there for each other during those times. But when the relationship becomes a one-way street, when your needs are ignored, and your emotional well-being suffers, it's no longer healthy. It's not empathy anymore, it's emotional labor being taken for granted. You start to realize that their constant chaos is not just bad luck, it's a cycle, one they're not trying to break. And without even meaning to, you've been pulled into it over and over again. How to spot them? Every conversation somehow circles back to their issues, no matter the topic. They rarely, if ever, ask how you are, and if you open up, they minimize or deflect your feelings. They expect emotional support, but don't reciprocate when you need it. You feel anxious, tired, or emotionally heavy after talking to them, even when nothing specific happened. You started to dread their calls or messages, not because you don't care, but because you know it'll cost you more than you can give. Being there for someone is noble, but losing yourself in the process is not. You deserve friendships that nurture you too. That holds space for your joy and your sorrow. That lifts as much as they lean. Healthy friendships aren't about keeping score, but they are about balance, and you should never feel like you're carrying the full weight alone. 6. The shapeshifter. They act differently depending on who's around. With you, they're kind and fun. But in a different crowd, they ignore you, mock you, or shift their personality completely. They change to fit in, and if fitting in means leaving you out, they'll do it without hesitation. This inconsistency is confusing. It makes you question the authenticity of your bond. You may wonder which version of them is real. The one who laughs with me or the one who distances themselves when others are around? This behavior is especially painful because it often happens in public or social settings where rejection stings more. A true friend should never make you feel like an outsider for the sake of their image or convenience. How to spot them? They're overly influenced by group dynamics. They treat you warmly in private but coldly in public. They avoid standing up for you when others are critical. 7. The friend who keeps score. Every favor, every text, every lunch tract, measured, remembered. This is the friend who brings up old deeds as leverage or guilt. If you miss their birthday once, they remind you for years. If they paid for coffee 3 months ago, they expect your payment in kind. Friendship shouldn't be a ledger. While fairness matters, relationships thrive on generosity, not bookkeeping. When every interaction becomes transactional, love is replaced by obligation. Keeping score erodes the natural flow of friendship. It turns kindness into currency and creates tension where there should be ease. How to spot them? They constantly remind you of what they've done for you. They make you feel indebted or guilty for small things. They keep track of who initiates, who gives more, who shows up, why we stay, even when it hurts. You might wonder, if these people are so draining or hurtful, why do we stay friends with them? The answers are layered. Sometimes it's history, we've known them since childhood or bonded during a difficult time. Sometimes it's fear of confrontation, of loneliness, of being labeled the difficult one. And sometimes it's hope, the belief that if we're patient or kind enough, they'll change. But staying in a friendship that consistently wounds you isn't loyalty. It's self-betrayal. And the longer you ignore the signs, the more damage it does to your confidence, your joy, your ability to trust. Rebuilding your circle, choosing real over convenient. Friendship doesn't have to be perfect to be real, but it does need to be safe, mutual, and genuine. The good news is that when you clear out the fake or harmful friendships, you create space for the real ones to grow. The kind of friendships that feel like home. They hold you through hard times and cheer for you with their whole hearts. That challenges you when needed, but never out of spite. That stays even when the spotlight is off. To build that kind of circle, notice how you feel after spending time with someone energized or drained. Trust patterns, not promises. Don't be afraid to have hard conversations or walk away when necessary. Remember, the best friendships are rooted in respect, not convenience. Conclusion: you deserve better than bare minimum friendship. You deserve friendships that stand firm through every season of life, not just the easy. Sunny days when everything feels light and effortless, but especially during the storms, the moments when life gets messy, complicated, and painful. True friends don't disappear when things get hard. They show up with open arms, ready to listen without judgment, ready to stand beside you even when they don't have all the answers. They don't make you feel small or insignificant in order to lift themselves up. They celebrate your victories without comparing them to their own, and they honor your struggles without turning the spotlight away from you. Real friends don't twist your words to suit their narrative or compete with your happiness as if life were a zero-sum game. They understand that your joy doesn't diminish theirs and may find strength in your light rather than fearing it. They know the importance of humility, knowing when to admit they're wrong, when to say, "I'm sorry," and when to listen deeply instead of just waiting for their turn to speak. Growth is a shared journey, and genuine friends are willing to evolve alongside you, learning from mistakes and committing to become better, more compassionate people every day. Friendship is sacred. It's a form of love expressed not in grand gestures, but in consistency, trust, and kindness over time. And while nobody is perfect, and everyone stumbles along the way, a real friend's love is loud and clear because it's rooted in a willingness to learn, to forgive, and to keep showing up with an open heart. So when you find yourself stepping back from those friends who drain you, who only take without giving, or who cause more pain than peace, remember this isn't about bitterness or cynicism. It's about healing. It's about reclaiming your emotional energy and deciding that your peace matters. You're not closing doors out of spite, you're opening the door to healthier connections and richer experiences. Real friendship isn't about filling your life with a crowd or tallying up numbers. It's about inviting the right people into your space, those who make you feel safe, valued, and whole. People who lift you up without judgment, who inspire you without envy, and who love you not despite your flaws, but because of them. In the end, protecting your peace means choosing quality over quantity, choosing authenticity over pretense, and choosing people who bring light into your life, not shadow. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.